I had had family members say, like my father, we were in Mexico, and my father said, I think you might have a drinking problem. And I said, I'm on vacation, you don't know what you're talking about. But they knew, I didn't. So I was definitely on my way to a full-blown alcoholic, and I got the news on 9/11. My middle son was still at home. He said, Mom, Uncle Mikey's building was hit. And I said, no, honey, they don't fly airplanes in New York City. And he said, well, look at the TV. And when I looked, the second plane hit. And I just fell to my knees. I fell apart. Honestly, my first thought was alcohol. First thought was, I got to numb this. I got to stop. I don't even know how to deal with it. And that's probably the first time I drank in the morning. And it didn't stop, from there. And it just got worse. And I just couldn't control it. And I ended up calling. I was very drunk, and I called my local Walgreens in Chicago and asked if I could die from taking Tylenol PM, too many. And they said, yes, you will. And I said, thank you. And I hung up, and I proceeded to make 10 piles of 10. And I took them all with a lot of rum. And I ended up in a coma for 5 days. I was angry when I woke up. But I guess that was my cry for help, that was my time. So my family presented to me pictures of palm trees and swimming pools, and I thought that's what I needed, not knowing it was rehab, and no one in my family's ever been to a rehab. So I flew down to Florida and went to my first rehab, and there was a kid sitting on a picnic table outside, and I was gonna go find out what was wrong with him. He looked angry. So I went up to him and I said, what's your bleeping problem? He said, well, it started with 9/11. I lost my little brother. And I can't tell you the feeling I got. It just came over me. Like, first of all, I'm not the only one. Second of all, I'm not the only one that deals with it with alcohol. And third of all, it was to me very spiritual that God chose to put us together. And that was my first stint with a rehab. And I ended up moving to Florida because I loved it here. So I came here in 2004, and I stayed sober till 2014. So I had 10 years of sobriety. What happened was I became complacent. I retired March of 2019. I went to a club to go swimming every day where I drank every day. I did not swim, but I was in the pool. And my family was like, oh, she just loves swimming. And I'm like, yeah, that's not what I'm doing. So they used to greet me at the valet with a cocktail, call me the lady. And of course, all that alcoholic grandeur went with that. And, I pretty much went there every day and drank from 11 to 6 or 7. And then I went home and continued. One day I got a phone call from my eldest son who lived in Texas. They got to the door and I said, who died, Jeff or Leah? One of my other kids. And he said, no one died, Mom. And I said, this is an intervention? And he said, yeah. And I said, I'm going. I'll go right now. I knew that I needed the help. I just wasn't going to get it for myself. So we went with no suitcase, no toothbrush, in my bathing suit. And the minute I got here, I just started crying. And I said, I need help. And I did the intake. And that's how I got to Hanley. Everything was good about it. The food was good, the people were good, the caring was amazing, and the teaching. I learned about this disease like I'd never heard these things before. It was amazing. And I understood it for the first time. I will never forget what I learned here. I will never forget it. And it was a huge part of it was dealing with what was inside of me that I never told anybody, that I never talked about because I was tough. But I had a lot of EMDR and trauma therapy and, took the Band-Aids off. And here was the place to do it. And I had signed up for 30 days. And when the 30 days came to an end, I said, I'm not ready. I'm not going. And I stayed for 45, and it was the best thing I ever did. Headwaters gave me back my life. They gave me back my dignity. They gave me back the respect of my children. I would be dead without this program, without what I learned here and what I did here. I speak highly of Headwaters all the time. My children understand how it worked because their mom's back. They have respect for me. I'm a happy, joyous, and free person, and they don't have to worry.